it's tough to take responsibility for our patterns and for the things that have gone wrong in our lives. But it's also the most empowering thing to do ever, because as long as it's everybody else's fault, that means we have no power. We're helpless. Like everybody else is in charge. They're running the show. But when we step back and we say, oh, actually, I do play a crucial role in my story. And I'm not responsible for the actions or the behaviors of other people or how they chose to show up or respond, but I am responsible for me and what I've said yes to and what I've engaged in and how I've shown up and how I've communicated, where I've sort of fallen off track. Then we can start to do the work of taking our power back. Mm-hmm. And it can be confronting because when we go through those passages, we might feel overwhelmed with guilt or what if I had done this differently? Oh, I wish I had known this before. Why did it take me, until I was 40 or 50 or 70 to learn this? If only I had done X, Y, Z, then I would have, had the relationship, kept my marriage, not done that thing. But, we're all just walking the path in accordance to our own timeline, and we don't get to control it. And so I just say, it's never too late. Don't make yourself feel bad. Some people never get this opportunity to wake up. And so if you're in that now, it's a gift, and just really try to be gentle with yourself, because I see a lot of people in that where they're waking up and they're having these deep realizations that are going to for sure make their life better because they're aware. And yet they're so focused on the fact that it took them so long to get there, or, wishing they could, rewind and do things differently. And I mean, that's a trap.
I feel like when people wake up, that they feel like, oh man, this is the worst. This is hard. It's making things difficult. When will this be over? And I'm like, mm-hmm. They feel like they're just starting, I think is the general feeling that I get from people when they get there, is that they feel like they're just starting. And I'm like, you have no idea how far you are. You've spent your whole life in a prison of your mind of thinking it's everybody else's fault. And when you start waking up to the reality that you are everywhere you go right there, and you have your own patterns, you're actually so much further along in the process than you realize.
Yeah, it's so true. Sometimes, I do these group coaching calls every once in a while for participants of my Becoming the One, my program. And I get people who come on and they're revealing these really honest and tender parts of themselves. And they're owning the ways that they have sabotaged their love lives, or that they've fallen out of alignment, or the ways that they are responsible for pushing people away. Sure. And they're just so honest. And it's breathtaking to witness. And then they go into this self-doubt. I should have known this, why didn't I know this sooner? And I'm just like, I don't think you realize how profound it is that you even are willing to own this about yourself, and that you see it, because you're for sure going to be a better person in relationship next time. Like the way that you show up is going to be so much more loving and connected to self, because you're willing to own this. And that's all we can ask for. Right. And so I really do think we can get caught in this trap of like never being enough and never having it right and not being perfectly healed, which is never going to happen. We're never going to be perfect. It's as soon as you feel like you have, healed something, then you're going to enter into a relationship, or your relationship is going to evolve and it's going to bring new things, because that's just the nature of life. And that's like the cycle of nature too. It's to bring change, right? As the seasons change, you get new challenges. In the summer, you're faced with, how do I keep my plants from burning, and how do I, keep everything watered and nobody's overheating. And then, right when you get that figured out, then you move into winter, and all of a sudden it's like, how do I, prevent my, everything from freezing, and, how do I keep the water flowing? And so that's nature, and that's what we are. Right. So it's like, we're expecting things to one day just fall into place and everything's easy because we've done our work. And things do get easier for sure. They get way more pleasurable. They feel way more harmonious. Big things don't, small things don't feel like big things anymore. Yeah. But there's still going to be challenges along the way. And it's just, we learn how to work with them through working with our own minds and our own nervous systems.
I'm curious about the healed part. You know, there's an idea that we need to come into a relationship when we've like found ourselves and we're a healed person. And as you said, so simply we'll never be perfect. What about not being healed from a relationship and going into another relationship? Even if that relationship isn't the self, it's someone else. Is that a space that you can enter a new relationship in? Or should the focus be on working on yourself until you've healed from that relationship?
Well, look, I think it's not possible to fully heal from a past relationship without having new relationships. And it doesn't have to be romantic relationships, but it can even be friendships. But like, we heal relationally, right? Because if we've had trust broken, or if we've felt betrayed, or if we've lost hope, how are we going to heal that on our own? Like, we need connection, we need other people, so that we can remind ourselves and reaffirm that love is safe, that connection is safe. We can practice communicating in a new way. We really do require relationship as human beings to evolve and heal our relational challenges. So that's the difference. If you want to go and be a monk and meditate on top of a mountain and not do relationship, then sure. But if you're going to do relationship work, you need to be in relationship.
Yeah.
And also the thing is like, most of us enter into relationships with unhealed stuff from the past. Like, I've not yet met a person who doesn't have something that isn't quite resolved, or like some painful experience or memory that might be lingering underneath the surface, or that might be causing some hesitancy to let go, or, some time that they felt betrayed or hurt. And that's just the nature of being human and taking leaps and, experimenting in love. So yeah, I mean, I would say don't rush into a relationship when you're feeling desperate. Like, if you've just gotten out of a relationship and you're desperate not to be alone, and you're in this panic because you need somebody,
yeah,
that's a red flag, because the chances are you're not going to attract somebody who is super safe, right? Because you're going to be attracting just anyone, you'll just say yes to anyone. You won't have the confidence or the core to qualify. But I don't recommend waiting until you've got it all figured out to find a partner, because you'll be alone forever.
Thank God.
Yeah.
What if we see someone outside of ourselves, a couple outside of ourselves, and we're really close to someone and we can see that it's unhealthy? How do we address that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, is it an abusive situation where your friend is in trouble and you actually need to support them in getting safe? Or are they just living out their human patterns and figuring things out? You can be a sounding board and you can support them and you can make reflections. But what I've learned along the way is that even when I see that things are not going to work, or when I see a couple that, they're obviously not bringing what it takes to the table to make it work, there's something that they have to learn in that relationship before they're ready to let go. And, I've seen this many times where it's so obvious to me that this person is not with the right partner, and the relationship is clearly not good for them. And they even know it on some level. And yet they keep it going for a few years. But then when they come out of it, it's like that pattern really sunk in for them. They really saw it clearly. And it's like they needed to be in that long enough to really see it.
Yeah.
And so we have to let go and just let people have their path. Because I know for myself, even, I've been in a relationship like that, where I've written about it in this book, where I, for years, didn't even feel attracted to this person, but something kept me in that relationship. And that was because it was such a karmic relationship for me to see all of my patterns clearly, the way that it erupted. And so as painful as it was, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't take it back. And we just have to remember, everybody's learning, and all we can do is love them.
Yeah. And that you have to, like, it's back to the fire, right? It's just that you hadn't felt enough fire to really alchemize a pattern that was unhealthy. Let's talk about compatibility. I'm very fascinated with compatibility. My sister's laughing at me the other day. She's like, you've dated so many different kinds of guys. She's like, whether they look different, act different, like they're so different. And I have a lot of curiosity around compatibility. and what compatibility really looks like in a relationship, and maybe also additionally from an attachment style perspective even.
Attachment style is funny because if we're more anxious, we're definitely going to attract someone who's more avoidant. It's just
I don't know anything about that. What do you mean?
I know, it's so funny. I'm just like, okay, you have to just surrender here. Like if you are an anxious person right now, like if that's your pattern, you are most likely going to end up with someone who is typically avoidant. Now, that's fine, actually. There's degrees of attachment, styles, right? Some people are really far on the end of the spectrum where they're completely avoidant, like they're just going to ghost you and not show up. But everybody has some level of ambivalence or avoidance or whatever it may be, and then of course there's people who are just secure. In pretty much every single couple and person that I have ever seen or worked with, including my own relationship with my husband, there has been some level of attachment to be repaired. There's some level of repair that's needed. And so I don't really resonate with this idea that you need to go out and find somebody who's secure. See, there's your attachment right there.
You're codependent, Sunny. You're definitely codependent. Yeah, you're definitely codependent.
I love him.
How cute's that? His name is Sunny too.